Hey, this is the first episode of Focus on Photography. We're going to talk with Michael Woolsey. We're going to talk about Sony, Canon, and a bunch of other stuff that is real world photography stuff. Check it out.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Focus on Photography, Episode 1, recorded on October 24th, 2019, Box of 20. Hey folks, I am Aunt Pruitt. This is Focus on Photography, and I don't even know where to start, folks. First and foremost, I'm here on twit.tv. So if you have not already hit the subscribe button, go ahead and hit the subscribe option on your favorite podcatcher right about now. But let me go ahead and tell you a couple things about this here podcast on twit.tv, Focus on Photography. This is going to be a little bit different. I know you folks that have already been a Twit fan and a Twit listener know that I have been on different podcasts here on the network, and we've even started the Hands-On Photography podcast. This is not going to be hands-on photography. This is focus on photography. Different format, different flow, audio only, me, guests, panelists, and we're going to talk just the latest and greatest photography-related news, photography-related rumors, and we're just going to have a roundtable discussion about the world of photography in our world, real-world experience. People that are out there creating great content with their lenses and Wacom tablets, what have you. It's just going to be a general conversation, and hopefully it allows you as a listener, an aspiring content creator, to be able to get into the world and get out there and start creating your own content based off the things that you learn here on this podcast. All right. So that's the deal with Focus on Photography. One more thing that I'd like to get out. Another big thank you. The Twit Army has been so dadgum welcoming to me and to my family here in the Petaluma area. It means a lot. I want to say thank you to my mother for the support and for her phone call yesterday and her text yesterday for calming me down because I've had an interesting week, and my mom's was there just like a mom's always is. Thank you very much. And one more thing, topical here to the Northern California area, thoughts and prayers and best wishes to the folks in the Sonoma County area that's dealing with the wildfires. This is a pretty serious situation in time. We hope everybody is okay, and we hope everybody can bounce back as soon as possible. Thank you to all of the emergency people doing everything they can to keep everyone safe. So that's that. So now let's go ahead and get into this here show. On this week's episode, I have an outstanding photographer, Mr. Michael Woolsey. I'm struggling with saying your last name. It's probably my southern drawl. Am I getting it close?
You're close, and you're actually pretty spot on. Almost. Just think of Woolsey with that
Woolsey. Michael Woolsey. He's here, local to the Petaluma area. An outstanding photographer that's out there taking candid photos of the people here in the community, handling commercials and ads and just local events and portraiture sessions. He's a working photographer, folks. And if you check him out on Instagram, it is Hey Wools. It's such a cool name. If you check him out on Instagram, you'll see a lot of his work, and it's such a great flow that he has because he does a lot of there's an event here in town. Is it the River?
Oh, Rivertown Revival. Yes.
Rivertown Revival. What exactly is that?
It's kind of a celebration of the community and of the river, and it's a huge music festival, and certainly there's a lot of other elements there that are kind of attractive.
Right.
People come in as they are,
right,
in their costumes or a certain kind of period-ish
right.
type of. And it's a fundraiser for the river, Friends of the River.
Okay.
And it's a pretty good, outstanding event. And what a friend of mine and I have done has actually created the photo booth where we photograph individuals who would like to kind of capture how they are at that moment. And it's pretty wonderful. And we've about 800 or some odd people come through that photo booth.
800 come through the booth?
Right. It's
holy moly.
Yeah. But we only do that once a year. So it's a gift back. It's kind of a give back to the community. Which
holy moly. How in the world are you keeping up with 800 people coming through a photo booth? Because my understanding, and I've shot a photo booth session maybe twice in my career. And the workflow that I had with it is I would tether myself to the laptop with the camera and set up a seat, a background, and I basically just have them come in, sit down, snap, they go away. I come back, somebody else comes back, and it's just sort of a steady flow, but not 800 people.
Well, what's interesting is that we could not even tether or something like that,
right?
And it's basically, I work in a way that I need to be free and be going up close, go back, and kind of get different elements of the individuals,
right? And
really to play. I mean, it's really play with the lens, play with the camera, play with them, and it's really been successful in regards to getting them to be a little, I say, freer,
right? And
also, there's moments where you feel like you don't want to shoot, but you really should shoot, because then there's something going on with them that you just capture. And
you see, that's some nuanced information right there that some people don't quite get. Is I know exactly what you're talking about. It's that almost as if they don't know the camera's there,
right?
And you just capture that realness of
exactly right. And a matter of fact, a lot of times when you're photographing, you're like doing a portrait, it's the time that you're not making a portrait that is actually the element in which is actually a really beautiful element. And especially when you have kids or couples or, they're kind of getting romantic, and all of a sudden you kind of stop, they think you're not shooting, but then you kind of go in and it's like, just wonderfulness.
And this is when it's nice to have a little remote too.
Well,
just a little remote too.
And it'd be interesting to kind of to have a camera. Maybe next year we could do something like that, where we have maybe a GoPro and just like kind of have it time lapse,
right?
Which would be very interesting.
That would be cool to see. That would be cool to see. All right, but we're gonna shift on over to the news and rumors real quick, and we're gonna come back to that story because that's fascinating stuff. So for all you gearheads out there, because I know you are, this is a photographer's community, and photographers love gear for whatever reason. No, I'm just kidding. Some of the latest things out there coming from the world of Sony. There's two cameras, Sony's A9 Mark II, as well as the A7R Mark IV. Yeah. Now, let's start with the A9. That's probably the camera the ultra professional is going to get. It's about $4,500 just for the body only. We haven't even gotten into the glass. You don't want to put any type of inexpensive lenses on this this big old camera body for $4,500. So you're looking at a nice investment there when you go with the A9. But who is that A9 for? That A9 is more for think of the sideline sports photographer that's out there at the Super Bowl. They're not out there at the high school football game. They're out there at the Super Bowl. These are the people that are vetted, invested, and have an outstanding body of work. So they're going to invest this type of money into their gear. You're going to get dual card slots, CFast 2 card slots, 20 megapixels, 10 frames per second, in-body stabilization. The grips have been changed a little bit on this design with the latest body. It's a little bit bigger. It's still a mirrorless technology, so it's not as big as the 1DX Mark II or anything like that. So you're going to get a smaller package, but you're still going to get some beautiful images with their Sony imaging technology. My thoughts personally on that camera, I have no use for that because I don't intend on shooting NFL prospects or anything like that. I'd rather go out and shoot landscapes and street photography. But there's people out there that's in this market. Have at it, folks. Have at it, folks. So that's the A9. But now right below that, this piqued my interest just a little bit. Now this is the A7 Mark IV. Again, another mirrorless camera body, so you're going to get another nice, smaller, compact body. And it's still up there. It's about $3,500 I believe. Now I can't remember all of a sudden.
That's about right.
About $3,500, but it has 61 megapixels. 61 megapixels. I saw that and I'm thinking, I don't have enough SD cards for that.
Right. Or you need another hard drive.
You know, that's a lot of data. They're touting all of these extra megapixels and extra features such as the pixel shift to sort of help make your images a little bit more crispy for people that tend to struggle with getting that steady shot. In-body stabilization, 2 SD card slots, which is a good thing. There's a lot of cameras that are not doing dual card slots for some reason. That still baffles me today. What about you?
Well, Canon has that for their one of their cameras.
For the 1D, right?
Yes.
But that's the only thing that I can think of. I don't think it's on the 5D4, or is it?
For the Canon 5D3, there's a dual slot.
It is on. Okay.
But it's actually the smaller card.
The
takes
SD
a little bit longer.
CFast.
Takes a little bit longer to load up. So it is not doesn't have that great advantage.
I don't see why this is omitted for some manufacturers, because professionals, they would love to have that redundancy. You know, because I don't know about you, but I've had cards fail before. And
it happens.
It hurts.
Yes, it does.
It hurts when that happens, and there's nothing you can do about it. But say, you know what, client, I'm sorry, we just lost the card. We need to shoot this all over again, and it's costing me more money to come out here and do this shoot again. But it's my fault because I didn't have any redundancy in place. So,
right.
But this A7 Mark IV was a little more interesting to me because, number one, the body has changed on it. Mr. Woolsey, I don't know if you noticed, but I have really big hands.
Right, yes. I have dainty hands.
I have really big hands. So the mirrorless cameras of today have never really appealed to me because they're just so small when I pick them up. Granted, I understand the technology is quote unquote better on a mirrorless versus a standard DSLR, especially when it comes to the electric viewfinder that you get with them. I love that. That's outstanding because it's essentially what you see is what you're going to get when you look through it. Versus on a DSLR, you need to sort of hope and pray that you got your exposure right. But those mirrorless cameras, they just didn't feel right.
Okay.
But Mr. Laporte here, the chief twit here on Twit TV, he has that new A7 IV.
Oh wow!
And I've held it for a time or two, and I got to tell you, it feels great. It feels great.
Yeah, I actually saw the review on it, and it looks like it was really wonderul camera. And they have updated their menu. They have updated their screen. And I love the idea of being able to point. If you're videoing, that you could actually point, touch.
And it tracks.
Right.
Oh
that's
gosh.
so amazing.
And,
right?
it tracks so well. And they have that auto eye, the eye autofocus, the tracks on that, and it's magical to see how it's actually stays with your subject.
Right.
In the past, it was sort of hit or miss. It was better than most, but it was still hit or miss. But now Sony has definitely learned what it takes to build that AI in.
Yeah, they really had to, though.
Oh my gosh, it's so good, and it's almost to the point where we're looking at it and saying, is Nikon and Canon, are they going to catch up to this? Because a lot of people, when it comes to cinema, they want to shoot on Canon because Canon has amazing lenses, cine lenses. So you want that same autofocus and prowess to go with that beautiful glass, but it's not quite there. It's still pretty good, but it's not quite there with what Sony is doing with its motion tracking. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's interesting. So I use the A7R IV and use it for a couple commercials. And it worked out very, very nicely. As a matter of fact, we use Zeiss lenses with an adapter on this particular camera.
Well, that's some nice glass.
It was beautiful, and it actually worked really well. And I found that the A7R III really did work very well for cinema. I wouldn't use it for like I say as the main camera. It's really for the B camera.
B camera, okay.
Not saying that it can't be a camera that if you're doing a documentary to use it, because it's really a phenomenal camera for that. And it's a little bit different than the Canon. I've used Canon for cinema as well, but I don't find that it has. For one, it's a bigger file. It seems for the A7R III. The Canon doesn't. It's not a K4.
Right.
4K. I'm sorry.
4K.
4K. Sorry. 4K.
It's okay. The chat room forgives you.
And so. And my work is going towards more cinema or video.
Okay.
And so it's becoming time now for me to kind of really look at the bodies in which I need to kind of maybe the next purchase.
Right.
And I've been looking at the A7R IV.
Right.
And the attraction to it has been very, very nice. And I'm just almost like on the verge of
I think we're going to tip you over the edge now.
Oh, I think so. But what I've been doing with these cameras, I've actually been using old school lenses, meaning old Nikon lenses.
Right.
And I got to tell you, it's just really beautiful.
Yeah.
And but yet I do like the Canon lenses because it has a nice bokeh and very beautiful way. Somehow the lenses are really beautiful.
Right.
So, anyways, I don't want to go off.
Oh no! You're good. You're totally good. You're totally good. Yeah, that camera there, it has really piqued my interest. I'm a Canon guy. Whether it's I shoot with a 60, but I've also shot with the 5D several times. But for me, my 60 is my go-to because weirdly enough, I like the very screen on the back. That whether it's video or whether it's photography, that very screen has been useful for me because I like to do a lot of low angle stuff, even street stuff. I like to do low angle. And quite frankly,
we're talking the same thing. That's great. Absolutely. There's something beautiful about the low angle.
And so it's a lot easier to shoot that if I have that very screen holding the camera at a low angle and I can see the framing a lot easier and line it up just perfectly. Or if I'm sitting it on a little mini tripod, just tilt that little very screen out. Sony and Nikon, they have those screens that pop out, but it's not the same. It's not the same freedom and in degrees of variation of the angles and whatnot. So Canon has sort of locked me in just on that point alone. You know, Canon can do better in other aspects, but that right there really does help me out from a practicality standpoint.
Yeah. And I do, with street photography, I absolutely agree. And getting low and being able to have that freedom to do so, and especially with the type of screen, that's really, that's a game, definitely a game changer for street photography.
Maybe one of these days, I wonder if Canon has like a patent on that or something, because it seems like it's so easy to do. It's just a little hinge on the back of the camera, but nobody ever does it. I think Panasonic may have one. I think Panasonic has a very lens, but you don't hear too much about Panasonic in the photography world here recently. Video-wise, Panasonic has done well with the GH5, GH6. They've done well other than their autofocus issues, but they've done well from dollar for dollar, if you will. I give you that. But that's the latest on the Sony news and all of their lovely hardware that just make all of us drool. Oh, goodness, thank you, Sony. Next up is a little bit of rumor talk. So Canon has its new bodies, the mirrorless bodies, the EOS R, and it has a new lens mount, the RF mount, which is supposed to be technically a little more advantageous for photographers. I still don't quite understand how it's a little more advantageous with the smaller flange, but whatever, Canon, just sell it to me. Whatever. So they've changed up their mount, and you get these new lenses, and they've had the 16 to 35, and they had the 24 to 70. So what we're waiting for was the 70 to 200. And they had a 70 to 200 mentioned, but this is a next version, and everybody was just so in love until they saw the renderings of it, where it actually telescopes out as you zoom in.
Bigger.
And people are going nuts over that. What are your thoughts on the lens just actually, telescoping like that when you change the focal length on it? Does that bother you?
Well, I think it would bother me just because I work in very tight spaces, and just even the whole idea of working with a heavier it just looks, and also I think to the individual who you're photographing or whatever, it just looks bigger and become a little bit more noticed. And for me, the way I work, I try to be like a fly on the wall or a ghost. And so the more compact, the better I am in regards to photography.
Now, see, I will argue this.
Okay.
The people that had previous versions of Canon 70 to 200, that lens was already bigger than this new one.
Right. Yeah, I have that for the Nikon lens.
Right. So what's the difference there? That camera lens that you've already have in your kit is larger than what Canon is offering.
Right.
It's just you have that sort of quote unquote inconvenience of it actually telescoping out. It's not going to telescope any larger than your existing 70 to 200. But it still bothers you?
Well, the thing is that what happened right when you were speaking, the first thing that kind of came to my mind was dust.
Ah, there you go. There you go. Good call.
Yeah, and it's just that it's more surface area that's going to be exposed to going back into the. Yeah, I would imagine that they kind of
allegedly.
Right, but
allegedly, but moving parts are still moving parts.
And I work out, we're here in Petaluma, right?
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
And I do a lot of work.
Nice
on
farming and dairy area here in this town.
And dust. But I do not work too much with big lenses. So I pretty much work with prime lenses. And for me it would have to be a very special shoot or unique shoot for me to go out with a long lens like that.
Now, when you say prime lens, explain what a prime lens is for people that just now getting into this and learning about the show and learning about photography. Explain what a prime lens is.
A prime lens is a lens that is like a 35 millimeter. You sometimes have like a 16 to 35 millimeter lens, which is a zoom lens.
Yep.
And a prime lens is specifically 35. Usually shoots at a higher, 1.4, 1.2.
A lot faster.
Right.
Okay.
And or lighter, or you could go in a darker space and use the lens for that. I find
typically costs more.
Yes, they do. But I do find that it has better glass. People could probably argue around that. But,
I agree with you.
Right. And just better glass. It's, yes, you have to change lenses more often if you're going from a 35 to 50 or whatever, or 85. But I find that the quality of the images is a lot finer. And the detail is a little bit, I don't know. It's
a
very
little
fine,
bit sharper.
Yeah, it is a little sharper. And it feels,
even like the inexpensive nifty 50 that you get out there, whether it's from Nikon or Canon or whatever, their cheap one that's under $200.
Yeah. Compare
that to the kit lens, it's night and day from a quality standpoint, and that's their inexpensive one.
Right.
So yeah, I love prime lenses. I personally, my opinion with the prime lens is I think it helps the beginner photographer learn a little bit more about composition. It forces you out of that comfort zone. If you have that 24 to 70 or what have you, you know that you can stand right over here and just zoom in to 70 millimeters. You have a certain mindset. But if you are forced to step into the focal length that you want, if you only have a 50 millimeter prime, you're forced to use your feet to move in tighter, and that's going to change your comfort zone a little bit. You're going to have to think about your angles of where you're lining yourself up and things of that nature.
Right.
You feel that way?
I do, and I remember getting into my first prime lens in high school. I went from a Pentax K1000 to a Minolta XC11. It was a long time ago.
Man, you are old school.
I know, right? This is film. However, I went from one type of lens to a very nice lens with the Minolta XC11. When I was in a darkroom and seeing the quality of the image come up and how it was night and day.
Right.
How the Pentax K1000 lens and the Minolta lens, it was absolutely just amazing. It blew me away. And actually, that's the point when I thought, okay, it's all about the lens.
Yep.
It's absolutely about the lens. And I then, from that point on, just spent tons of money on lenses. I could have not a very good body, but I could have great lenses. And the lens is going to tell the story. And actually, it does make you move around a little bit differently, especially with the 35 millimeter, right? With 35 millimeter, you are able to work around the subject.
Right.
No matter if it's a product or a person.
Or portraiture.
Right. But it's able to work, you're able to move around. And I agree about composition. You really need to, not need to, it allows you the freedom.
Right.
To really step out of your zone and have fun.
I think that it helps make you a better photographer too, if you can see these different, if you're forced, I should say, forced to see those different point of views because of your focal length. You know, if you're stuck with 35 millimeter, you know what you're going to get standing 10 feet away versus 5 feet away. Hopefully not 5 feet away with 35 millimeter, but you get what I'm saying. You're just sort of changing it around and seeing different point of views. Heck, if it's a person that you're shooting, where you're standing can even change their mood in the shot.
Absolutely.
And give you a whole different look.
Exactly right. And what's interesting is that sometimes you have these moments where you're looking in the back and seeing that it's not working.
Right.
And you have that moment of like you need to do something, but then all of a sudden you just make a move, like maybe like even 2 inches over, and something happens, and that's it. And really, there's some magic moments, and just allowing yourself to just move a little bit differently.
Right.
And it could be up, down, over a little bit, or just even having the person look over to a different direction, or just something different.
Right.
But you got to work it.
Yeah, and that comes with a lot of hours of practice. It's not going to happen on your first shoot. It's just not, because you're still learning, and a lot of times you're the people in the portrait, they're learning too.
Right.
You know, they're just sort of used to, okay, I need to stand on this spot and smile and say cheese, right? Right. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And that doesn't work.
Right.
You know, but that's how some people are conditioned. Just smile and say cheese. And I think that's one of the worst things to say.
Yeah. And actually it's interesting because, I mean, really, there's sometimes people do not know how to be in front of the camera. And it really is, about catching the moment of free, when they're freer to be themselves, as well as you.
Right.
And the way that you interact with the subject is going to make a really big difference.
I agree.
And so how can you entice a different way of being in front of the camera? And sometimes you just chat. Right.
Right. A lot of times, and I ended up learning this later with some of my shoots, because I had to do a lot of headshots at one point. It was just, I guess it was the beginning of the year, and everybody wanted headshots, you know, trying to get a new start. And they'd reach out to you, and they have all of this eager and vigor energy, just like, hey, I'm ready to do this. It's going to be the new me, and yada, yada, yada. And you set them up in the studio, and they're just sort of dead, mom. And we're like, where did that energy go? And that energy shows up in those shots. So you spend a lot of time just trying to talk to them, get comfortable, relax. This is me. This is not some other stranger. This is me. You know me. Let's just relax. Let's make these pictures just pop. You know, and sometimes it takes a little bit of a pep talk, like you said.
Right. But I wonder too if it's just a matter of the mindset. So for instance, if you go in and say, I'm going to make a portrait versus let's just have fun and do a candid. And what is that freedom kind of?
Right.
It's just maybe it's a way that we can approach it too.
There's a lot of techniques. That's some stuff that we'll probably dig into on this show a little bit down the road. But I like how your mind works, Mr. Woolsey. I totally dig it. Totally dig it. So that wraps up our discussion on news and tech and rumors around the photography world. But so we're going to move on and we're going to get into some real world stuff. We're just going to take a look at Mr. Woolsey, and the chat room is just blowing up. You guys are so funny.
I like that. Yes, everybody had a K1000.
Everybody had to learn on the K1000 back in the days.
Oh,
yes.
the lens. Oh, my God.
I love our chat room. Thank you, folks, for being in here. I'm Aunt Pruitt, and I'm here with Mr. Michael Woolsey here in Petaluma, California, local photographer that's just crushing it out there. Follow him on Instagram at Hey Woolsey and check out some of his work. So I want to ask you a couple things regarding your career path and what you've been working on recently. Now, your bio discusses doing AdWorks and commercials. And you spoke about doing videos a little bit earlier here in the show. When you're shooting video, what are some of the videos that you've had to work with, like typical subject matter? Was it a specific product shot, or is just this talking head videos, or stuff for social media? What kind of video work have you been working on?
So the way that I've been working is that I've been doing video of products and whatnot, but it's really it's becoming more that people are asking me to do a little bit more video because of the way I shoot stills, and that they really want to have that more of a different way of look.
Okay.
Like almost representing the way I shoot stills.
Okay.
Do it in video.
Okay.
Which is very interesting work.
Right.
And my work is going more towards that direction. The bigger commercials or bigger stuff is actually I direct them.
Oh, nice.
And so I know what I want. I could see what I want. And so it's better to express it to like a DP,
right,
director of photographer,
right,
photography, to translate what I see and have them shoot it the way that I want it to be shot. And so when I do it for myself, or I'm shooting the video, it's interesting because it's doing stills versus video is very different mindset.
It is, and
it's I don't know how to express it, but I'm able to work with individuals, but maybe work around the way that I work with the still camera. And as time goes, I've been working into different products to kind of stabilize gimbals.
Gimbals, like okay. You have a favorite gimbal in particular?
Right now, I've just purchased the Ronin S.
Okay, it's a little lighter weight, smaller.
It is, and it's a really wonderful gimbal. It allows you to move really nicely, and it's not big. You're not working with a Ronin M.
Right.
You don't have to set up for like 10 minutes to set it up.
Yeah, getting it all balanced out.
Right, but with the Ronin S, is actually giving me the freedom. And as time goes, so the next thing I need to really focus on is the monitor, and to get a monitor that really can actually I can see a little bit better with focusing and whatnot.
Right.
But I've been working a little bit with doing agricultural work with video.
Okay.
Working with a couple clients around that, and it's doing interviews, which is fun.
Right.
So I usually work with another cameraman.
Right.
To do a double setup.
Right.
Which I
Multi-cam.
find right, because in regards to editing, I love the freedom of being able to edit. And also kind of get different perspectives. So I'm learning as I'm going, but I feel very comfortable doing it. It's just I don't know how to really talk about it still.
Okay. Because you're still learning it, is what you're saying.
Well, I think I'm learning how to. I'm not learning. It's just I'm still in the beginning stages, but yet not in the beginning stages.
I got you. So you're to the point where I guess you can say you're to the point where you're trying to find your particular groove with it and your particular style,
right?
That you had clearly on the photography side of it, and you're trying to figure out a way to mesh that into the cinema side of it.
Exactly right.
Gotcha.
And the thing is, the still and video, even though it's not the same medium,
right?
And so, it's also not the same frame. Frame of mind. Video, you really have to. It's fluid, and so when you're videoing, it's a longer video. It's a longer image,
right?
Which that's the way I'm been trying to express it for a very long time. Is that with a still, you're making that one image,
one frame, versus all of these frames for those couple
which
seconds.
I find extremely fascinating because it's you're taking the image that you want to get, but you're making it longer, and I find that extremely actually creatively wonderful.
That's such a great analogy, and I love how you put that, because people hear 24 frames per second, but they don't necessarily think about it, what that really means. Break that down. 24 frames per second, 24 shots within a second, 24 camera clicks, click,
Right, yeah.
Within a second is creating video. And you have to approach that with the mindset of, okay, as I'm moving, how am I leading my viewers' eyes? How am I leading their emotions to feel when they're looking at this?
Exactly right.
Okay.
And also 60 seconds, 60 frames,
60 frames,
right, or 120. And each of those settings have a different kind of feel.
Yep.
And I definitely like slow-mo. I really
Who doesn't like good slow-mo B-roll, man? That's a beautiful setup. Goodness, yeah, I love me some good 120. Now, see, you saying you're sort of leaning more into this video aspect of your workflow. Are you saying that you're going to stop taking jobs for photography?
Oh, no,
continue
no.
to shoot?
Continue shooting. And it's just another. This is just another part of expanding my portfolio.
There you go. I get it.
Yeah, and so having a diverse portfolio. And the thing is that the way that I look at my work is that I really want to make sure that when somebody says, "Can you shoot video?" What is it for, and is it within the comfort zone?
Right.
And you don't want to. The worst thing you could do is say that I can do it, and you can't.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so the things I've been, the jobs I've been getting with video, I can do it. If I can see it, I can do it.
Right.
I also have the lighting for it. I also have the gimbals. I have what it takes to do it.
Right.
It's just important that for me, it's got to be very creative and kind of that they allow me to do the way I have the creative expression.
We don't want it to be, well, I'll put it this way. I'm assuming you don't want it to be where the video comes out as if anybody could shoot it. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly right. And that is my voice. And I think it's really important that you maintain your voice no matter what. You go from the portfolio you come from with stills and that years or just a vision or just the feel. Everybody starts having a feel with their work. That the same feel comes out through my the video.
When I was scrolling through your Instagram earlier, it just, I can get it. I get what you're saying here, because you're saying this is mine. This is how I feel. And every single shot in your grid has that consistent sort of airy and light, but then there's also a story. It also makes you want to ask a question. Every single one of these, when I look at it, I click on it, like even this guy in the coffee house here. I'm like, oh, he's looking dead at you as he's sipping his coffee. And I'm like, what's going on in his mind? What exactly is this he's drinking? Is it actually coffee? Does he like it? But that's because the way you framed it up and the way you were able to capture the expression on his face.
Right. And the video
little nuance like that.
Yeah, and the video could also capture that too. It's just a matter. So for that image that you were looking at, that was actually I was finished with the shoot, and he was just getting a cup of coffee. And so it's just
it's real world.
That, but also you don't want to turn off the camera just because you stop shooting.
Right.
You don't. So you ever notice when somebody shoots and then they all of a sudden look at the screen to see what they got? When they're looking at the screen, the moment is happening right there, right now.
Right.
You're missing the shot.
Right. Stop. What do they call it? Stop chimping at the camera.
Right. Just if you know you have the settings, you don't need to go always back there.
Right.
That one shot, you don't want to keep on going back.
Right.
I think with the video too is that you are seeing the action happen. You're seeing what's going on, and you are capturing that moment. When and there's many moments that are happening at that in that moment, or I say at that time frame.
Right. With your video, let's look at post processing. How involved are you with post processing? I know you said you've worked with the team here and there. So if you're working with the team in actual post processing, how much of your fingerprint on that Final Cut Pro or Premiere Pro session in the edit bay?
It's a lot.
It's a lot. Okay.
I'm sitting there with the editor, and because the editor usually will not be on the shoot,
right?
And I know,
so they don't have the energy that you have. Well, I shouldn't say have the energy. They don't know the energy that was on set at that time,
right? But also they don't know the the pre-production, the vision of the story,
right?
And also when you're on set and you are shooting at that moment, that there are moments in which you need to have in the final cut,
right?
And so that person probably will scrub through the work and miss that by not pulling it in.
Just a little bit of nuance.
It's true. You don't need. So if you're doing a 30-second commercial, right? There's probably 7 stories, and within those 7 stories, there's many shots taken. And so there's 3 seconds, 4 seconds to put into the final cut. And sometimes there might be something that's not very good at the beginning, not very good at the end. But in the middle, there's a cut that could be made.
Right.
That is actually the essence of what you're trying to convey.
Right.
And so to be there on the behind the editor is very, very important for me.
Right. I get it. I totally get it. I haven't had the opportunity to work with teams. I'm sort of a lone wolf, and that's good and bad. Because sometimes I would have liked to work with a team, but I struggle with collaborations. I'm sorry. I have a hard time depending on other people. That's the selfish side in me. And then when it comes to having my vision and trying to explain my vision to someone else, I can't say that I would have done a good job with it. You clearly have the chops to say, this is my vision. This is what I need it to look like. Bam, that's it. You got it. Thank you for doing that.
Right.
I give you credit for that. I can't do it. I can't do it just yet.
Well, what's interesting, I think what's important for me when I'm on a collaboration, and I feel when I'm working on a team that I'm working in a collaboration.
Right.
And sometimes my vision needs to be enhanced by other people's insights.
Okay.
And I really feel it's important to not work in a vacuum.
Okay.
And there's the DP or the lighting or the team might have a different perspective. And to me, that's so important to be able to be open.
So see all the different point of views.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you keep to a specific vision, you could actually miss out some real moments.
Nice. Yeah.
And some real treasures.
Right.
Of making a really good product.
Yeah, I believe it. I struggle with it. That's something that I need to work on in the future. I am now slapping myself in the back of the head. Get it right, Ant. Get it right.
Well, you and I then need to kind of go out and shoot together sometime.
We definitely do.
Yeah,
we definitely do. All right. Before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you one more hard-hitting question here, Mr. Woolsey. And that is, if you were out here in Petaluma with your camera, just, on a Saturday afternoon shooting street photography, because Petaluma is just ripe with beautiful street photography opportunities during the afternoons. If you were out there and someone saw you with the camera shooting, young, old, or what have you, and they said, "Hey, sir, I want to get into photography," what would you tell them? What is the one thing you would tell them if they're brand spanking new and want to get started? What's the one thing you'd say?
I would say shoot.
Just go shoot.
Just shoot.
Gosh.
No. But I know, right? But the thing is, it's so important that people find their voice, and it's hard to it's when you're first starting. Usually somebody wants to get in because they have a vision of what the end product, or where they have a story that they want to tell, perhaps. And I think it's so important for people to experiment and shoot and go outside their envelope, or out beyond their comfort zone, as you were saying earlier.
Right.
But also to not get so wrapped up in thinking you have to get it perfect at the beginning.
Right.
And if they're wanting to go out and spend a little bit of money, and they might not have so much money, but to buy a camera, but really invest in a lens.
Glass.
And
okay.
to really maybe choose one lens and work with that lens as much as possible. And then when you start feeling comfortable about what your vision is,
right,
then to expand, maybe go to 50 millimeter or whatever, or maybe a zoom.
Right.
But I highly suggest that you go with a fast lens, better glass. But also, I think too, people here in Petaluma, there's beautiful lands, right? They're surrounded by amazing,
beautiful landscapes,
right? So landscape is maybe something that people want to get into. People photography is a very different thing.
It is,
and then
it's quite a challenge.
And product work is also very different. Also doing more documentary style work,
right?
And that's the way I look at myself. Is I feel my foundation is documentary,
right?
And I look at everything I do in documentary.
Formatting,
even product,
right?
How can I make it interesting that it's not so stale? So I think when somebody's just starting off, they just need to be patient with themselves,
right?
And to shoot, and to and also do a box of 20. So
wait a minute, a what?
Yeah, box of 20. So when you're film back in the days.
Oh boy,
right?
He's going to the Wayback Machine,
right? Is to do a box of 20. So collect 20 of your favorite images,
okay,
and put it, like you had a paper box, right?
Right.
But as you get going further and further, there's going to be new images, and so you're going to take one out and put the other one in.
Okay,
that you feel like and you'll start seeing that
the progression.
The same thing with Instagram. You look at Instagrams, you'll start seeing that's your box of 20.
Right.
But it's on a what do you call it? Live,
right?
Whatever.
I totally dig that box of 20. That's and people today will probably get it more because of Instagram, because it's just a scroll and you can instantly see it.
Right, and you can see the progression. And so you can't take you could take the images off on Instagram,
right?
But it's nice to see how people are progressing within their work and the consistency too.
Right, that's outstanding. I that's probably the best news, the best tip I've heard in a long time, because it's so, I hate saying it this way, it's so basic, but it's a fundamental value that everybody can learn from. It's just seeing progress and seeing if you're progressing at all, seeing if your style is changing, because the more you shoot, you'll find yourself more interested in shooting a particular format or particular subject matter, or heck, even your editing style.
Oh,
changes.
Yes, exactly right.
I know mine has.
Yes.
So that's a.
And I think the
tip.
two is actually to really push yourself. Don't play safe.
Right.
And just follow that voice. Follow that voice that says, "I want that shot. How am I going to get that shot?"
Right.
And you have it in your head.
Right.
But how can I get that shot? And just maybe go a little step further.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Yeah. Don't hang off the lines or whatever.
Just a little bit. Disclaimer.
Right. Yes. But how can I get that shot? But ask yourself, I need to go further.
Right.
And just go a little bit further.
Outstanding.
And don't play safe.
Yeah. Good stuff. Good stuff. That is, whew, man, y'all, my creative juices are flowing right now. Man,
Nice.
Outstanding. Mr. Mike Woolsey just dropping some beautiful gems on us today here on Focus on Photography. I want to say thank you for joining me today and being here and launching this show. This is pretty big for me personally. I've been a huge fan of the Twit network for at least a decade now, and now I'm sitting here in this beautiful studio with all of these lights and mics and cameras.
I got to
and
tell you,
stuff.
it's pretty amazing.
It's pretty badass. I'm just gonna say it.
I'm looking around thinking, this is a really great
it's
setup.
Pretty nice, and
Very
I'm
professional.
so glad to be here, and I'm glad to be here with you to help get this show launched off and out to the internet and sharing all this beautiful knowledge and content with people that are interested in photography but just haven't quite gotten that little extra push to get started. And you said it in its simplest form: just go shoot. Just go shoot. So we're going to wrap up here and get you folks ready for more content here on the Twit network. If this is your first time seeing us here on twit.tv, go ahead and hit subscribe so you'll catch the next episode as it drops. We're going to be shooting Focus on Photography every Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. I guess that's noon Eastern. UTC, I have no idea. I can't do all of that math, so y'all have to figure that out on your own. But check us out on Twitter. You can follow me. I am ant_Pruitt on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram with the same handle, ant_Pruitt. Be sure to follow Mr. Woolsey. That is at Hey Woos over on the Instagram. Check out his feed. Go over there and tap the pictures and give him some nice comments on there. He's got some great stuff on there for you to check out that you'll just enjoy visually, and you'll enjoy the stories. Also, check out all the other shows here on the network. We have Hop, which is hands-on photography. I'll be shooting episode 2 at the time of this recording at about 2 p.m. today. So that'll be 2 p.m. each and every Thursday Pacific time. So check us out with your favorite podcast catcher, that is. All right, folks, thanks again for all of the support. Be sure to sign up for twit.community. That is our online forums. We have a good time just chatting about random stuff, whether it's computers, laptops, phones, cameras, or what are you watching on YouTube today? It's a great community and some great, funny, candid conversations with me and the other hosts, as well as our behind-the-scenes technical team. Thank you to all of our technical teammates here at Twit. And until next time, folks, I'm Ant Pruitt, and we'll see you next week. Thanks again.